Sadana. I am one of the co-founders of e-GMAT, and I'm going to be your main host today. In this webinar, we're going to talk about reading strategies and we're going to learn how to apply those reading strategies to improve comprehension. And what we're going to observe is, as we improve comprehension, our ability to answer questions increases. One of the things that I tell students is that even those of you who think you're good readers, I'm going to help you extract twice as much from a passage or from a paragraph as you currently do. But before we get started, I have a few questions for you. First things first, how many of you are e-GMAT students? How many of you are paid students of e-GMAT? Clear our answers. I'm going to put this over here. If you're a paid student, select yes, otherwise select no. If you're someone who's evaluating the free trial, select no. If you're a paid student, select yes. I have about 80 students in the webinar. For those of you who've just joined, if you're a paid student, select yes. If you're a free trial student, select no. Just it gives me a sense of the makeup of this group overall. All right, I still have about 50 responses. I'd like to get at least 70 responses. I have 85 students right now. Paid students, select yes. If you're someone who's exploring the free trial, someone who's just registered on the platform, you may select no. All right. Okay, about 42% of you are paid, 58% of you are exploring the free trial. Good, that's good to know. So let's get to know a bit about you guys overall. What's your target GMAT score? Okay, let's get a few more responses. And while we're doing that, I can put in another poll question as well, which is, which GMAT edition are you planning to appear for, or do you prefer? Let me reduce. Okay, let's get a few more responses. Are you planning to take the current GMAT, the Focus Edition, or do you not have a preference as of now? So that's something that I'd like to really see. Okay, about 70% of folks are aiming for planning to take the current edition. Another 17% or 65%, and those numbers keep on changing. So 65, 17, 18, more or less here. Okay, with regards to the target GMAT scores, 710, 720, that's the biggest bucket here. 730 to 750, almost a similarly sized bucket, 760 or higher, about 10, 11%, and then about 16% if you're aiming for that score of 600 to 700. Okay, I'm going to hide this. And when do people plan to take the test? We have about 34% of you more than a couple of months before the test, and then another 20% in the 46 to 60, another 20% in the 31 to 45, about 27% here in the 0 to 30 days, and more or less equally distributed there. All right. And I'm going to also hide that. With that, we have some upcoming. We have a phenomenal free trial. If you haven't explored it, definitely do that. And we have some upcoming free webinars as well. We have a free webinar on number properties. That's tomorrow. In that, we talk about the remainder equation. We start with actually 3 very difficult questions, which is, our goal is to make sure that each one of you can solve those questions. So we start with those difficult questions, tell you what you will be able to do by the end of this webinar. And then we start from the very basics, use the remainder equations, talk about positive, negative, and remainders, and talk about properties of numbers, and then arrive at how would we solve those questions. By the time, so typically when we start with these questions, the typical accuracy is about 20%. By the time we do these questions again, the accuracy improves to about 40 to 50%, and in some questions even 60%. And these are uber difficult data sufficiency questions. So again, if divisibility and remainders is an area of concern for you, definitely join this webinar tomorrow by clicking on this button over here. And then next week, my colleague Payal Tandon, who's GMAT Club's #1 rated instructor, she's going to talk about the meaning-based approach that e-GMAT pioneered about a decade back, and she's going to talk about how we can leverage meaning and logic to tackle every SC question. So it's not going to be the archaic grammar, but a very meaning and logic-based approach. Okay, with that, let's go right into the webinar. So the screen should have changed for you, and you should be seeing reading comprehension. Just some ground rules overall. When you see So in the center, what you see is a presentation pod. This is the place where I present information. We're going to solve a bunch of questions. The passages, the paragraphs, they're all going to be in the presentation pod. At the bottom, you have the Q&A or a question or the question and answer pod. If you have any question during the webinar, please post those questions here, and I'd be happy to address those questions. On the right-hand side over here is the place for my questions and your answers. This is where you see a short answer poll. There will be times where I will bring in about other kinds of polls. I have about 50 polls created in this webinar, and then there are polls that I reuse again and again. So there are about 100 polls. I'm going to quiz you about 100 times during this webinar, which is going to last 120 minutes or so. So that's all of those is, it's going to be in the right-hand pane. You guys are going to have a lot of fun if you participate in this webinar. If you're not afraid to express your opinion in a logical fashion, and if you're not afraid to make mistakes, there are those who do that and they learn a lot, and by the time they know exactly how to prepare for GMAT reading comprehension, they know exactly what's important when it comes to acing GMAT RC. And then there are those who are more passive lurkers. Those people, I'm sure they do benefit from it, but not as much as those who participate and ask their doubts. Because essentially, when you participate, one of the things that you're doing is you're engaging your brain actively, and when you engage your brain actively, you learn a lot more. Okay, so that's something that I truly, truly want each one of you to do, to engage yourself actively so that you can get the most out of this webinar. For most of you, this is your Saturday evening. For some of you, it's your Saturday morning. If you're here spending your time with me on your Saturday, you might as well get the most out of it. Okay, with that, let's get started. I'm going to go right into this webinar, the core of this webinar overall. There's one thing that I want you to do. If you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn. I have upwards of 22,000, I think about 23,000 students who connected with me on LinkedIn. I also post, best practices for the GMAT. We also post a research that we do on the GMAT and MBA every week. So it's multiple reasons why you should connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay, with that, let's go right in the webinar. So a good number of you were aiming for scores upwards of 700. In fact, only 16% of you were aiming for scores of, which were lower than 700. So if you're aiming for a score of 710 or higher, or on the GMAT focus, 655 or higher, what do you think your RC ability should be? You can put that answer in the short answer pod. If you're aiming for that high score, what do you think your RC ability should be? 80th, 90th. Ability is usually in percentile. V42 are what I call as GMAX ability levels. They translate to percentiles, and they're more for complete verbal, not so much for RC. But yeah, around that 90th percentile or higher. If you're aiming for that, if you're aiming for 730 or higher, 90th percentile is a good place to be in. You can be okay with 85th, but just to err on the side of caution, I'd recommend getting to that 90th percentile. That's something that I want you to really talk about. And then when we talk about the 19th percentile, don't just take it as a number. Internalize this as to what you're trying to do is to be among the top 10 performers in the context of GMAT reading comprehension worldwide, which means when it comes to comprehension, when it comes to drawing inferences, when it comes to understanding why the author wrote a certain piece of text, you are in that top 10 percentile. And that's something which is vital, because in the world where, as managers and leaders, we read a lot, we comprehend a lot. We read a lot, unless and until we comprehend what we read, we're not going to be able to make good decisions based on it, because decisions come from inferences come from comprehension. So I want you to tell me, what's your current RC approach? And what you're going to really see are three options in a poll question that's here. What is your current RC approach? And the three questions are: you skim through the passage and then go there. The second is you actually go look at questions first and then go read the passage. And the third approach is that you take your time in comprehending what's there in the passage, then look at questions, and then go through the passage. Let's get a few more responses. I have about 70 odd responses. I have about 110 students. And then let me broadcast results. About 76% of you read the passage first, you take it, and that's good. That's the approach that we recommend that you go through as well. But then about 23% of you either read the questions first or they skim through the passage. We want to change that habit. We want to make sure that we invest in the passage. We're truly interested in the passage, and then we focus on answering questions. One of the things that I usually recommend students to really have is that, when it comes to the GMAT, focus on learning. As long as you focus on learning, answering questions right, getting to your target GMAT score, that's going to happen automatically. On the other hand, if you focus on acing the test, if you focus on just solving questions, if you focus on really saying how can I get that answer right, if your focus is just that, and I emphasize on the word just, then you're not going to focus on learning, and you might get a trick to get one question right, but you're going to have a hard time applying that trick in a scalable fashion, getting other questions right based on that particular trick. And pretty soon you're going to reach a plateau beyond where your score becomes stalled. You get those initial wins, but then your score stalls. You don't want to be in that situation. Okay. The next is another cell. So we talked about these three approaches. The next is, what's the level of understanding that you believe you have when you read the passage before you start answering questions? And again, you have four options here. Okay, I have 78, but 80 responses, give or take. That's good. Upwards of 80 responses. Let me broadcast result and poll. About 10% of the class is in that 90 to 100%. 43% of you are in that 75 to 90%. And then you can see, a very similar percentage in that 50 to 75 by 37%. And then there are very few who are in that 50%. So my goal really will be to push this curve upwards. So those of you who say you're in that 90 to 100%, I really want to make sure that you extract a lot more from the passage right now, going forward than what you currently do. And those of you who are, at another buckets in this entire spectrum, I want you to I want to give you strategies so that you're going to get more out of the passage. And what you're going to observe is, as you get more out of the passage, as you read the passage through a different set of lens, you're going to find answering questions becomes a lot easier. All right. Let me just hide this. Thank you very much for that enthusiastic participation. That definitely helps. Now, one of the things that I'm going to try and introduce over here is to really say, hey, we want to make sure we read a passage the way a manager or a leader would do. We don't want to read a passage like an engineer, and the difference really is when you think about reading a passage like a manager, you're someone who's reading the passage to make sure that you understand the gist of information that's put in place over there, to be able to make decisions, to be able to make inferences without getting bogged down by the technicalities of the passage. Reading like an engineer, on the other hand, which you should not do absolutely, is where people try and understand those technicalities, and they also try and bring some information from what they already know in their background. They actually call it common knowledge, and try to go deeper into what the author is really saying beyond what's intended from the text itself. And when they do that, they often make mistakes. So essentially, I kind of have three kinds of students when I see over here. One is people who don't engage with the passage at all, and those are the folks who actually skim through the passage, and what they believe is whatever's going to be asked in the question stem, somewhere they're going to find, and they are looking essentially in many ways. If you're an Excel user, they're trying to do a VLOOKUP. Those people falter poorly. They are the people who are at that 30th percentile. The second group of folks are people who read like managers do, and these people do phenomenally well. They are at folks who are at that 70th, 80th percentile today. And then there are those people who read like an engineer, who try to understand every technical detail. And while they spend a lot of time on the passage, they often infer things which are not written in the passage, and or they get confused because, typically when it comes to technical information, GMAT RC passages do have some technical information, but you're not required to understand that, and they kind of get lost in the technicalities and take a lot of time, and they miss on important pieces. These are people who are stuck in that 50th to 60th percentile rut. Do you guys recognize these three personalities um, in your preparation? If you do, if you may want to just type it out, who do you think you associate the most with? Someone who skims through the passage and then is trying to do a VLOOKUP. Someone who's reading like a manager gets a lot out of the passage, but focuses purely on the decision aspects of it, and or the engineer piece over there. Okay. All right. If you're reading like a manager, you're going to do well. We're going to help you be a better reader that way. If you're reading like an engineer, the transition to reading like a manager is actually, from a teaching standpoint, it's simpler because you've got to do less. But from a habit standpoint, you're going to really have to restrict yourself, and you're going to see where you have to do that. If you skim through, that's where you'd have to. It's about a mindset change that's going to happen. Have an excellent question here. Isn't it better to know everything properly in the passage so we can answer correctly? Yes, it is better to know everything properly, but not the technical details. And I'm going to illustrate that with an example in about 5 to 6 minutes. So great question. Uh, hold that question over here, and I'm going to demonstrate the same point about 3 times, or probably about 5 times in this webinar or so. Okay. But again, thank you for participating. Okay. So my goal today is, I want to make sure that you get twice as much as you do from the passage right now. And when I say twice as much, this is, reading like a manager, not like an engineer. So drawing inferences, focusing on the right kind of words versus the technicalities overall. And we're going to talk about reading strategies, and we're going to apply those strategies through small passages. We're also going to talk about keywords. Keywords are an excellent way in a passage to understand what the author is trying to say, and how the author is trying to stay. Okay, guys, the question, please put that in the Q&A pod, because I clear out the short answer poll over here, and I would hate for your question to go unanswered. So if you can copy this question and put it in the Q&A pod, there it goes in the queue, and then I can get to that at the appropriate time during the webinar. Okay. Now, the second piece that I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how to answer questions, and we're going to start with 2 really small passages, and then where we'll look at this on a main point and an inference question, and then we're going to do a full-length passage. And so, in many ways, what we will do over here is essentially, we will lay the foundation here. Then over here, we will use that foundation to build methods to solve questions, and then we will cement those methods overall as we do this. Okay. All right. Now, to get this done right, one of the most important things is to have the right kind of attitude, and that I you know I cannot emphasize enough, because if you don't have the right kind of attitude, then there's no matter what I do, I can't help you. So what does having the right kind of attitude means? So the first thing is, when you're thinking about GMAT RC, your brain needs to be sharp enough. Your brain needs to be in a state where it is ready to learn. It's ready to absorb information. You shouldn't have that attitude of, oh, let me get done with this question. Rather, when you see a GMAT RC passage, your brain should say, oh, there's an opportunity to learn something new in about 400 words. I'm going to learn about a new area. I'm going to learn about important aspects of that, and I'm going to be able to apply those aspects right away. So that's the right attitude that you need to have. The other piece that you need to have is, if you don't have the right attitude, then you won't be able to visualize information that's presented to you. And why is it important to visualize information? Because what's going to happen is, in GMAT RC, you'll have the links, as you get to more difficult questions, the answers are going to be where you link sentences, and unless and until you visualize sentences, you won't be able to link them. Unless and until you're able to link them, you won't be able to reject incorrect answer choices. So it's all of this is think of it as a funnel. If you skip at any part of the funnel, you're not going to be able to move forward, or you're going to make mistakes or waste time. Okay. So, what reading strategies are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about three key aspects of reading strategies. One is how do you read sentences, and this is what I call as the atomic level of reading strategies, because a sentence is one of the most atomic aspects of a passage. We're going to really break sentences down. We're going to focus on keywords, and we're going to actually make sure we understand the aspect, what the author is saying in that sentence. The second thing, as we focus on keywords within a paragraph, is we're going to really predict what the author is likely to say. Because as we leverage keywords, even before we read a sentence, we can infer the direction in which the author is going to move. And as we get better and better at doing that, that's when our ability to visualize improves. That's when our reading speed automatically improves, and that's when our accuracy for difficult questions improves. Okay. And then we don't want our brain to get overwhelmed. So different people have different mental capacities at this point. The principle here that we're going to follow is we're going to summarize and predict. We don't want our brain to get overwhelmed. So whenever we feel that we're getting overwhelmed, we're going to take a pause, write a couple of words down, and then move forward. Some people may be able to read an entire paragraph without doing that. Others may need to summarize every sentence. And there's no right or wrong here. You are where you are at this point. You have to move forward from here. Measure your progress, not your absolute position right now. If you improve, each one of us has enough neurons in our brain to get to a point where we can read a paragraph and then write down a couple of words and then read an entire paragraph. But don't try and get there tomorrow or day after tomorrow, because that is a recipe for failure, and that usually leads to much lower accuracy, and that's when people get disheartened and then try and apply all kinds of shortcuts. Okay. What this says, do we need to take into account all aspects of an RC, or do we need to read the answers to find the answers quickly? No, you can't find the answers quickly, Utsav, if you don't understand the passage. That's something that you'd have to do. Okay. Why can't we turn the presentation into a full screen mode? Because then you won't have place for questions. You can turn the presentation into full screen mode by clicking on this thing on the top right hand corner. That's something that you can do. It's just you won't be able to see the questions. And I apologize if your screen's small enough. It's just Adobe Connect is a phenomenal tool when it comes to e-learning. It's just one of those things that also requires that you have a certain minimum size of the screen. Okay. All right. And one thing is, we will not rush through. We will always be slow. Even on the real GMAT, you will be slow. If you want to if you want to get through your verbal section quickly, learn to be slow, because that builds up speed. Okay. And I'm going to demonstrate this. We're going to do the first question. So I'm going to give you the passage. I'm going to give you about a minute to read the passage. There will not be a question with this passage. Just read the passage, focus on the important things, and then I'm going to put in a poll question. All right. So here is a passage. And when you are done with the passage, I'm going to put in a poll question here, which says yes, no. Just select yes once you're done reading the passage. All right, I think everyone's done. That's phenomenal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present a question here, and I'm going to still give you the passage. So the passage will still be there. Just make sure we have the passage in the Q&A pod. So here's the passage at the bottom, so you guys can see that. And let me bring in the poll question. Here is the question. And here's the question. Good luck, guys. And yeah, I don't know, about 30 of you select still solving. That way, I will I'll make sure that that you guys are I give you appropriate amount of time. All right. Good luck, guys. But 70% of the class is done. Let's get some answers in. 5, 90% of the class is done now. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let me end the poll. The broadcast results, you can see 99% of you guys are done. Just one person isn't done. On the broadcast results, you can see how you guys polled. The most popular choice is choice D. Choice C is the next most popular, choice B, and then finally choice A. So in we're going to talk about what's main point is. We're going to talk about what reading like a manager versus reading like an engineer is. I'm going to hide this over here. Okay. So let's start with this. Bordering on the extreme, one definition of ethnocentrism considers the schismatic in-group, out-group differentiation. How many of you, and I'm going to put in a yes-no poll question. Where's my poll? Yeah, great. My poll. How many of you, when you saw this bordering on the extreme, stopped over here and drew inference from this? How many of you, when you saw this bordering on the extreme, stopped from here and drew an inference from it? Okay. What was the inference that you drew from it? Can you put in your answers here? What inference did you draw at the bottom? I'm going to combine this, bordering on the extreme and then one definition. When you looked at these two things, what inference did you draw from this? Okay, let's get a few more pieces. Bordering on the extreme, one definition of ethnocentrism. What inference did you draw from these two things when you were doing this? Here is the question. You guys can see the question here as well. What inference did you draw from these two parts? 3, 2, 1. Let me broadcast results. 53% of you stopped and observed this. And you can really see to define something, presenting two ideas, okay, presenting some meaning about that particular word. It's an extreme definition. It's the author's view, one definition. Okay. Now, you can really see, I want you to read this, and please don't put your answers in the Q&A pod because that's place for your questions and not your answers. The right-hand side is an area for your answers to my questions. Ethnocentrism has many definitions, and this is one of them. Tone of the passage. Let me just tell you, tone works in CAT in the context of GMAT RC. Don't go to with that tone of the passage piece. Extreme definition on something, extreme viewpoint, author's view. One definition pointing to the view that the author does not necessarily agree with. That's excellent. That's excellent. And this is where you can really see the inferences that you draw just from two words and reading like a manager. So when I look at this and say bordering on the extreme, one definition of EC, I'm not going to call it ethnocentrism. There are no brownie points. EC considers it a schismatic in-group out-group differentiation. The thing that I am getting out of it is that, hey, this is an exaggerated definition, and the fact that the author uses one definition as a word over here, what it means is that this is not the author's definition. This is an exaggerated definition, and plus, in other words, what the author is merely doing is that the author is merely communicating information. Can you guys see this? The author doesn't believe in this definition. The author is merely saying, hey, one definition of EC is blah, 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 blah. I'm going to clear all part. Can you see just from this part, the yes, no poll? Bordering on the extreme, one definition of something. It's an exaggerated definition. It's not the author's definition. And the author is merely communicating information over here. Okay. And when you think about reading like a manager, um, this is what extracting information is. So let's read forward. One definition of EC considers it a schismatic in-group, out-group differentiation in which internal cohesion, relative peace, solidarity, loyalty, and devotion to the in-group are correlated with a state of hostility towards out-groups. Okay. So when I read all of this piece over here, okay, schismatic in-group out-group differentiation. So I'm not going to really go into the technical details of it. I am not an engineer. In which internal cohesion, I don't know what internal cohesion means. I know what cohesion as a word means, but I don't know what internal cohesion means in terms of in-group and out-group differentiation. I'm not a sociologist. I'm not supposed to know this. Relative peace, solidarity, loyalty, and devotion to the in-group. It means that I'm actually devoted to this group. That's all that I'm going to worry about this. I'm not going to worry about all of these details as to what this means are correlated with. What does the word correlated with mean? What is correlation? Two entities, correlation between two entities. What does that mean? Because as a manager, that's something that you're supposed to know. Okay, depends on. Interrelated, okay. Linked to. Similarity, okay. One is dependent on the other. So correlation doesn't necessarily mean that they are dependent on one another. What correlation means is that they are that one changes with the other. In technical words, if and correlation is a really important concept in the context of data insights, two entities are considered correlated when they increase together or decrease together. They're considered inversely correlated when one increases and the other decreases. Okay, it's about how one changes with the other, and the person who actually said that, good job. That's the precise definition of that. So Manvinder, great job in defining that. Okay, so okay, so these things are correlated with a state of hostility towards outgroups, which outgroups are often perceived as subhuman and or incorporation of the evil. So essentially, when you think about that reading like a manager, what you're really saying is there's one definition, it's an exaggerated definition. It's not the author's definition, and the author is merely communicating information. And as per this definition, we have some sort of a differentiation in which love for your own people is linked with hatred towards outside people. And as per this, those outside people are considered subhuman. So in this passage, the author presents one definition of EC, indicates that that definition is exaggerated, which means, hey, it may not be the best way to define EC. And these things are correlated. They happen together. Okay, these things happen together. All right. Reading like an engineer. Can you guys see that? Yes, no, Paul? Not worrying about relative peace, solidarity, and blah, 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 what it means, how does that do that, but essentially just focusing on this. All right, 80% of you see that. That's good. 80% is a good number with the first example because we're going to do 5 examples. So I'm really happy if we are at about 80%. I would have taken anything above 60% at this point. Okay. So let's look at our poll over here. I'm going to go and bring our poll back. Here is how we polled. You can see what you chose over here, and you can see the relative popularity of answer choices. So we have to figure out the main purpose of this. So let's look at answer choices here. Criticize a concept that encourages hostility towards people not belonging to the same group. Does the author say that that EC is bad? Does the author present downsides of EC? Yes, no? No. So does the author criticize? No, the author doesn't criticize EC. Okay. Now, does EC encourage hostility? Does EC encourage hostility? No. These two things are correlated. They move together. But EC doesn't cause hostility or even enhance hostility, right? Because of these two things. Because this is wrong, choice A is wrong. People who chose choice A, is that clear where you made a mistake? Do you want to write it down over here? Why you made a mistake? Why you thought that the author criticized EC as a concept? Clear? Perfect. All right. Now, evaluation means looking at the pros and cons, the benefits of EC and downsides of EC. Okay. So does the author talk about the benefits of EC and then the downsides of ECs? So evaluate as pros and cons. Okay. Now, is the definition same as features? Is the definition to define a concept same as features? And then the difference over here is when you think about a definition versus features, let's just see over here, notes 101. I'm going to move this. What are features of a cell phone? Why don't you guys tell me? It has a camera. It has a processor. Okay, allow. Okay, these are features. So, does the author enlist various features? Absolutely not. Does the author evaluate? Absolutely not, because of which choice B is wrong. People who chose choice B, what did you learn from this? People who chose choice B. What's your takeaway? How are you going to avoid making this mistake? Don't be in a hurry. Can I display the passage? Absolutely, I can display the passage alongside. I can display the passage at the bottom. Okay, don't be in a hurry. Understand what's evaluating. What else? No one said I'm going to make sure that every aspect of the answer choice is correct. Why is that? So many people chose choice B. Shouldn't that be one of the Precision, yes, really important. Also, had you understood what the author has done in the passage, then you would have been able to reject this answer right away. Correct? Attention to detail, yes. Better understanding of the passage. Good. To define the concept of VC, let's look at choice C. To define the concept of VC, which leads to hierarchy among social groups. So, does the author define the concept of VC? Does the author present his definition? Absolutely not. The author does not present his definition. Okay. And does EC lead to hierarchy among social groups? Is there any cause and effect that's listed in the passage? Leads to means causes, right? Lots of people chose choice C. Okay, people who chose choice C, is it clear why choice C is wrong? The definition is given here, but is it the author's definition? To define the concept means that the author is going to give his definition. Let me actually give you another example. Some people think that okay, has the author defined high value companies in the sentence above? No, not at all. So how, if he's not done that, then how is the author defined EC when he says bordering on the extreme EC and how has author defined it? No, it's just the author has merely presented an opinion. On the other hand, if this were the sentence that the author gave you, high value companies are those that journalists talk about, then the author will have defined what high value companies are. Correct? Can you see the difference? How to define? Think about, put yourself as the author. If you were to give your definition, would you really say bordering on the extreme one definition of EC? Or would you say EC is XYZ? Which one would you say? One over here? One or two? Okay. So now you know how to identify this. And remember, I said we're going to talk about sentence structures, right? This is the aspect of sentence structure that you have to learn. This is about reading like a manager. No tricks. Just learn how to read. How did you guys answer? Let me bring in over here your poll. Here is how you guys answered. Okay. You can see which choice you chose, A, B, C, or D. I'm going to hide this. Good. To define a concept, no, had the answer been to present a definition of EC, then the first part would have been correct. If this were, sorry, let me just control Z and control Z over here. And if this were EC, then the first part would have been correct. But the second part, this part over here, this second part is still incorrect. But this part is okay. 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 Are you guys having fun so far? Is this good learning? Good. Let's look at choice D, which is our correct answer, to introduce the concept of EC. Okay. Now, prior to reading the passage, did you know about EC? Prior to reading this passage, did you know about EC? No. So now you have an idea about what EC could be. So the author has introduced the concept of EC. And how has he done that? He's done it by presenting a view on it, which means that, hey, this is an extreme aspect of EC. This is an extreme definition. I'm introducing the concept to you by presenting an extreme definition of EC. So this is correct, which is what makes choice D correct. Okay. So again, this is a demonstration of focusing on the managerial aspect of reading, focusing on the decision-making aspect of reading, and not getting lost in the in the in the technicalities of it. Yes, he majorly presented someone else's view here. There's no but there, but everything up after the but is correct. Why would you use the word but before majorly? He majorly presented someone else's view. He presented a definition, an exaggerated definition of EC. And by doing that, he did introduce the concept of EC to you by saying, hey, this is an exaggerated definition. Okay. He's presenting a view when he says bordering on one extreme. Whose view is that? Whose view is that? The author's view. Okay. So he's presenting a view on it, an opinion on it. Okay, let's move forward, and this will become a lot more clear. But then why do you make mistakes? One is you don't read the passage properly. Okay. You don't visualize what's happening. People didn't focus on bordering on one extreme, bordering on the extreme one definition of EC considers it blah 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 blah. The second is you don't read the answer choice in isolation. Okay, I'll give you the PDF after this, so you can check the answer choices. You're going to be evaluated on the same aspect again in this question. How many of you evaluate answer choices in two steps? Step one is just read the answer choice to understand what the answer choice is saying. And step two, then look at it and say, is it the correct answer or is it incorrect? How many of you do it in those two steps versus just read the answer choice and just ask the question, is it correct or incorrect? If you do it in two steps, you're going to have a much better time. If you just read the answer and ask your brain, is it correct or incorrect, without visualizing the answer choice independently, then you're going to find that you make careless mistakes or you make mistakes which you shouldn't be making. Okay. So that's something that's really important. Sometimes, and this is not something that has happened in this question, but it's going to happen in some questions going forward, is that people don't understand the question stem. Okay. Now, in terms of the PDF, you will get the PDF. I share it at the end of the webinar. I also share it in the email, so you'll get it at both places. And Surgeon, yes, the technical features you thought were internal cohesion, blah, 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 blah. Yes, absolutely. Those were the technical features. Thank you. Good job on that. Okay. You need to be absolutely immersed on the right aspects of the passage. You need to read slow and you don't need to panic. One thing that you have to make sure is you've got to trust the test maker to say you're not going to be tested on anything that you can't get from the passage itself. And number one. Number two, you won't need your prior knowledge. Okay. PDF from the last webinar. Please remind me in about 30 minutes. I'm going to upload it once we get to the full length passage. Okay. So again, questions in the Q&A pod, please. Do these. Really important. Big sentences, break down, be slow, understand keywords. We're going to really look for more and more keywords. And then, as you get to the big passage, summarize. That's going to be really important. A lot of people think they should have read novels growing up if they want to do well in RC. You don't need that. It does help, not necessarily with regards to the familiarity with sentence structures, but beyond that, that's a very limited help. Okay. And you don't need subject specific knowledge. How many of you think, hey, humanities passages are the worst? A lot of people think that. No. Some people who are from humanities think science passages are the worst. Okay. The funny thing is, at e-GMAT, we have lots and lots of experts. And everyone who comes on board gets trained again, just because we want to make sure that they have absolute clarity with regards to what they are saying. Okay. And one of the things that I've observed is people from humanities, they actually falter on science passages, not because they don't understand science passages. It's because they actually bring in a lot of their knowledge with them, which they shouldn't be bringing in a science passage. They don't do that in humanities, by the way. They do it in science. A lot of people who come from econ try and do the same thing in science as well. Okay. And which is where their accuracy is low and they're worried about science passages. Okay. History, biology passages are some of the most fun passages. I'm an engineer, and I'm saying that because I can tell you that they have just so many technical things that you shouldn't worry about, that you don't need to worry about. That getting the gist of those passages is really easy. It's a great question. Guest from guest. It'd be nice if you can change your name. I can refer to you. But the question is, if you read two sentences and realize you don't understand anything from it, should you read them again or should you continue? Oh, two sentences is too long. If you read a sentence and you don't understand what's going on, slow down. Read it again. Don't get to two sentences. Okay. All right. Question number 2. We're going to do this. Follow the same exercise. I'm going to put in a yes/no poll here, and when you're done, make sure you select yes. Same exercise. If you're done reading the passage, all right, everyone's done now. is time for questions. Or a question. You're going to just have one single question. Let's get to still solving. I want everyone to select still solving first before I show the question. All right, 40 people, 45 people are selected still solving. Here is the question. I'm going to mute myself. Here's the passage, guys. I'm going to give you a bit more time so that you guys can get to the answer. Five, four, three, two. Come on, last 5 seconds. Put in an answer. And one. We end the poll and broadcast the results. Here is how you guys poll. You can really see we have a split jury. There's no answer choice. That's more than 33% choice B is the most popular choice. 33% of you have chosen choice B. A lot of this, what you're going to really see is a continuation of what we saw. And forgive me, I couldn't really show the passage earlier. I just gone to get some water, but hopefully this is you were able to get to this. Now there was a question which I want to address before I go to the explanation of this particular passage. So someone said, when it comes to GMAT RC, I get really confused. I fear I'm going to take a lot of time, and that because of that, I go in a state of panic. Does that happen with others as well? Okay. Why does that happen? Why does this happen? I want to kind of get to the bottom of it. Why do you think it happens? Think about GMAT RC and you go in a state of panic. I'm going to take a lot of time. This is not great. Can't keep track of how much time you spend per question. Length of passages. Okay. Time constraints. Fear of RC. Okay. Length of the passage. Sometimes the passages are difficult to comprehend, overwhelming information, and difficult words. Okay. Now, fun thing. Step one. I want to just talk about this one aspect over here when it comes to anything, learning anything. There are two modes, and this is not just specific to RC. Um, there are two modes that you will exist in. Does anyone know what this means, learning mode versus test mode? What is that? What is learning mode? What's the goal of learning mode? What's the goal? Yes, learning mode is where you develop ability. What should you focus on in learning mode? What should you focus on? Okay, mistakes. But what's your goal of learning mode? Process, yes. Focus on process. Okay. Focus on okay, focus on why you make mistakes. Okay. What should you not focus on in learning mode? Timing. There's one other thing which is really important with regards to what you shouldn't focus on in learning mode, which you should focus on in learning mode is improvement with every day. Okay. Improvement in accuracy. Okay. But you should not focus on is timing and your absolute score in learning mode. How many of you do this? When you're learning things, you don't focus on this and focus on these things. I do sometimes. If you do this, then you won't worry about timing anyway. And if you do this, then your timing will have been put in place by the time you go into the test mode. Okay. Now, a lot of people think timing is a skill that they need to develop. How many of you think, hey, I've got to develop that timing? Okay. You don't develop timing as a skill. You get better at doing things and timing automatically happens. Timing is an outcome. You work on things so that your timing improves. You don't work on timing directly, because if you work on timing directly, then the only thing that you do is read quickly. When you read quickly, uh, then what happens? You make mistakes, you miss things. When do you move from learning to test mode? e-GMAT students, what is our transition from learning to test mode? What is our learning mode? What is our transition mode? And then what is our test mode? Third stage, yes. What is test? What we call that third stage? Cementing is the transition, yes. And the learning mode is going through the course. Cementing is the transition aspect. You do relax cementing, and then the testing mode is the test readiness part of it. Okay. And which is why you don't go into the test mode unless and until you hit those cementing metrics. Okay, for inference questions, do we have to choose an answer choice that's not explicitly given, but is derived from what's given? Not really. Remember, what's the definition of an inference? I'm going to give you a very simplified definition of an inference overall. Oh, why did I hide that? Hold on. Where is my short answer poll? Yes. A lot of people think an inference is something that's not given in the passage, and that's something that I have to derive from. And this is a very common question that we get. Okay. The definition of inference is what, given the factual pieces of information, what is it that the author would 100% agree with? If you had $100 and you'd say, I bet $100 that the author would agree with this, that is inference. Even if, by the way, it's not going to happen, but if there were an inference question and you saw a restatement of information that's given in the passage in the answer choice, choose it. No one can say that that's wrong. Okay, because the core piece of definition of inferences, this is what an inference is. Given what's given in the passage, and again, this is not the best way it's written, but what would the author 100% agree with? Okay. Inferences can be perspective based as long as they are the author's perspective. Inferences are always the author's perspective, not anyone else's. Okay. Really important piece. Unless the question some states that, okay, so that's really important. If nothing is stated, then it's from the point of view of the author. If the question stem says, from XYZ's point of view, what can we infer? Then, of course, you'll have to look at XYZ's point of view. Conclusion is another word for inference, absolutely. But if I were to really just say what I look at when it comes to this, inference is, I say, where would I bet $100 that the author would 100% agree with? That's what I look for. And you're going to really see if you apply this, you're going to get every inference question right. Okay, great question, M. Now, the color blue is considered to have soothing effects on moods of people. What can you infer based on this? What can you infer based on this? The color blue is considered to have a soothing effect on moods of people. What can you infer based on this? Let's get a few more responses. I have 45 responses. 57. 60. All right. Let me end the poll. Broadcast the results. The color blue is considered to have a soothing effect on moods of people. 43% of you think some people regard color blue as soothing. You guys are correct. 37% of you think the color blue is soothing. You guys are wrong. And people who chose both statements, of course, are wrong because you cannot infer number 2. Okay, again, remember, does the author agree with this statement that the color blue is soothing? Does the author 100% agree with? No. Would you bet $100? No. So how can you infer this? This is what the author 100% agrees with, that some people so people who chose B or C, can you guys see where you made a mistake? And can you see what inference truly is? Okay. Because we don't really know, I've said. But where is it quantified the people? Okay. The color blue is considered to have a soothing effect. So if some people don't consider the color blue to be soothing, then will that statement even be logical? If some people don't consider color blue to be soothing, then will this statement be logical? Someone has to consider color blue as soothing for the statement to be logical, right? So that's where inference is, the second level of inference. Now, if the author truly wanted to say that the color blue has a soothing effect, this is what the author would say: the color blue has a soothing effect on moods of people. Then the inference would be that the color blue is soothing. Okay. Can you see the difference between the two statements? Good. All right, let's go from here to here. Ethnocentrism and its canonical variants are deemed to be intimately connected to xenophobia. What does deemed to be mean? Not bound to be. They're considered to be. They're considered to be intimately connected with xenophobia. Okay, so some people consider EC and its variants to be very closely connected with xenophobia, or let's call them XP. So I'm going to call this EC. I'm going to call this XP. Okay. What is XP? A complex attitude comes sentiment structure involving aversion, dislike, and antagonism vis-a-vis the strange or the alien. So XP is hatred for the alien. I'm not going to worry about sentiment. System comes sentiment structure, blah, 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 blah. And everything that the stranger or the alien represents. All right. So essentially, what is this? XP is hatred for aliens. That's all that I'm going to get from this part to this part. That's me reading like a manager. You can really see from over here, from 1, I had a lot more inferences to draw. Sorry, from 1, I shouldn't have written 2 over there. And then from 2 over here, I did not draw as many inferences. Why? Because that's a technicality. So I'm not going to worry as much about drawing inferences from 2. All right. Some socio-cultural anthropologists even considered XP and EC opposite sides of the same coin. Can anyone tell me what does the word even imply here? Why has the author used the word even? And this is where keywords lay emphasis on similarity, going to the extent. Why has the going to the extent? What does it mean? Extreme, okay. All right. You see over here are deemed to be intimately connected. Okay. So what this even is saying is that this connection over here that we talk about, what this even is saying is that this connection is so strong some people consider this connection to be so strong that they practically think that they are the same things. Can you see the use of keywords over here and see the relationship? Even means that some people consider them to be, so first said EC and its variants are deemed to be intimately connected. So, some people consider them to be intimately connected. Some people even consider that connection to be so close that they consider them to be opposite sides of the same coin. But a few sociocultural anthropologists, a few have cautioned that this need not be the case. Can you see the difference? Can you see the usage of even and why that's used? Okay. And that's where the keywords come in. Some experts take it to an extreme where they say they coexist, and some other experts disagree with that. When you look at this even, just to repeat, it's talking about the extent of connection over here and saying this is much more than intimately connected. So there's a group that considers this to be much more than intimately connected. Okay. So what does the author do in this passage? Let's look at this. The author defines a new term XP. All right. And then the author says some people consider that XP and EC are closely connected. All right. And then the author tells you that XP is hatred for the alien. And some experts think that EC and XP coexist, and some other experts think otherwise. Facet summary clear? Is the passage summary clear? You define a new term, and then go over here. Now, an inference is something which I said is always from the point of view of the author. So if the author hasn't given an opinion on something, you cannot infer that. Okay. And if there are facts presented in the passage, then the author will always agree with them because the author is a sensible person. Let's look at the choices here. I'm going to put in a poll question. This is how you guys polled. Okay. You guys can see what you chose. XP and EC are different facets of the same concept. Now, this is not the author's view. It's the view of some experts because it's deemed view. Okay. So, and the author has not presented his opinion on how he thinks about this view, which is why choice A is wrong. Everyone who chose choice A is clear. Why choice A is wrong? Choice B is wrong for the very same reason. The canonical variants of EC are closely connected with XP. That's not the author's view. It's the deemed view. And, the author has not presented his opinion on it. People who chose choices A and B. Let's go look at choice C. XP and EC are not connected with each other. We don't know any of that. Okay, the author has not presented his opinion on it. Hence, this one is wrong. Okay. XP could cause EC. Do we have a cause and effect relationship that's presented here? Absolutely not. Okay. Opposite sides of the same coin means they are the same. It doesn't mean one causes the other. Okay. So choice D is wrong for that reason. Choice E, which is my correct answer, it comes from here. What is XP? A complex attitude cum sentiment structure involving antagonism and vis-a-vis the stranger, the alien, and blah, 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 blah. This is the definition of XP presented by the author. The author agrees with it. This is something that you can infer from it. It's the correct choice. Yes, the answer to I said in some cases it's considered, some people consider, not in some cases, some people consider it to be the same. That would have been an inference. Absolutely. Not in some cases. All right. What did you learn from this? What are we going to do to not make such mistakes? What are we going to do? Infer from keywords. Okay, focus on simplicity. I'm not downplaying the concept. No, I understand. This also seems simple. The answer choice seems simple, but then if it's 100% true as per the information in the passage, that's the correct answer. Start breaking down better. You can really see how you can get a lot more from the passage. Even those of you said that you get 90% out of the passage. All right. So the next time we're going to do this, I want you to read with intent. Make sure you get 100% out of the passage. Don't skim. Break down long sentences. Connect them. Okay. Visualize information. As you see keywords, spend time on them in the context of the passage and try and summarize. Even if you're not feeling overwhelmed, always try and summarize, and you're going to find you have a much better grasp of the passage. Okay. All right. I want to give you a full-length passage, and I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to read it, and then I want you to take notes. Okay. Here is the passage. I'm actually gonna give you the passage in notes. I think that's much better to do. I think it's a lot more clear that way. How do you identify keywords? We're gonna talk about that. Is this better? Is the text better? Good. So I'm gonna put in a yes no poll over here. Once you're done, then you can select yes. Right now, why don't we all select no? I'm going to clear the prior answers. Yes, no poll. Let's select no, and then when you guys, toggle your choice to yes, and we know you are done. Okay, about 40 people who selected no. I'm going to mute myself, so that way you know you guys are done. All right, most of you are done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this passage over the Q&A part. So you guys have it. You'll have to scroll it. But now we're going to solve questions. So let's start with P1, Q1. So here's the question. I want you to say still solving before I show the question. All right, about 30 people who said still solving. This. Okay, remove broadcast results. Here is the first question. I'm going to mute myself again. All right, 80% of the class is done. Get those answers in. 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to end the poll. Broadcast the results. Here's how you guys polled. Let's go to the next question. Here's question number 2. Let's get to still solving once again. 30 people still solving before I show the question. Here is the question. Good luck, guys. All right, most of you are done. Get those answers in. 3, 2 and 1. Let me end the poll. Broadcast the results. This is how you guys did. Let's move forward. This is Q3. Let's go to still solving. Okay, let me remove broadcast results. Here is the third question. Good luck, everyone. Everyone's done. Let me get those answers in. Let's go to question number 4. As how you guys did. Let me end the poll. That's question number 4. Let's get to still solving. Okay, here is question number 4. All right, everyone is done. Let's get those answers in. 3, 2 and 1. Let's look at the last question. We end the poll, broadcast results. Yes, I love the performance. Okay, I'm going to hide this. Here's our last question. You guys need to do still solving, and then I'm going to share the question. Remove broadcast results. Here's the question. Good luck. All right, everyone's done. Get those answers in 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to end the poll. Broadcast results. So this is the only one where we have a split jury. But other than that, how did this passage feel? How did this passage feel? Doable, good. This is a 700 level passage, by the way. So that's doable, that's good. Yes. Very comprehensible, nice. A little easier to understand. Would have been harder with the timer on the side. Yeah. Felt more comfortable. Good. Let's look at this. Let's see what's going on over here. So I'm going to move this. So language is not so tough. Again, there isn't a lot of technical piece, but the managerial piece is just the same. So because you were focusing a lot on the technical piece earlier, which is where the earlier piece seemed a bit more challenging. Yep. FNM assert that medical research could be improved by a move towards larger, simpler clinical trials of medical treatment. As FNM assert, what did you take from this? What did you take from this? What was your takeaway from FNM assert? It's their opinion. It's not the author's opinion. Okay. All right. So, what are they asserting? That medical trials can be improved, medical research can be improved by moving towards what? Larger, simpler trials. So, this improvement, you can really see how we have put that improvement in place. Okay. So, we've put that improvement in place with that up arrow. Currently. Currently is a really important keyword. Currently means this is what happens today. Currently, researchers collect far more background information on patients than is strictly required for their trials. Okay. Comparatives on RC, be always careful. Far more than is strictly required. What do you mean is there's a lot more information than is strictly required. How much more? Substantially more than hospitals collect. Thereby is a really important keyword. What does thereby indicate? What does thereby indicate? The outcome, the result, this leads to, yes, good, thereby escalating costs of data collection, storage, and analysis. So as a result of this collecting far more information, we have costs of storage and data collection that go up. Okay, so very simple. Anyone who's from a humanities background, even those guys can understand this, right? I'm sure engineers can. Although another important keyword, it's a contrast keyword, limiting information collection could increase the risk that researchers would overlook facts relevant to the study. So there's a downside of this. FNM contend, they believe, their argument is that such risk, never entirely eliminable from research, would still be small in most cases. So the author says, hey, here's an objection that could be there, but then FNM say, hey, that objection is not as relevant. It's not substantial. Only in research on entirely new treatments are new and unexpected variables likely to arise. Only, what is in research? Only means everything barring this one group. There, you're not going to see new and unexpected variables, which means whatever you're going to collect in the core group that FNM are recommending, those are going to be the variables that are going to be relevant. Okay, so again, only is an exception keyword over here. Is the line that this over here? This is more by FNM. I'm just inferring this by the continuity, but this is something that the author agrees with as well. That's a great question. Okay. All right. Let's just summarize this. Currently, too much data is collected. That increases the costs. All right. There's negatives of data collection, which could be that you lose some facts, but as per FNM, those risks, they cannot be removed. Never entirely eliminable means that risk cannot be removed completely, and they're usually very small, with an exception over here with this only in this case. So overall, if I were to summarize, there's a proposal which talks about the benefits of a simpler trial. Okay, summary makes sense to everyone. Proposal that talks about the benefits of a simpler trial. You don't collect as much information. Okay, then let's look at this. FNM proposed not only is an important keyword because it means it talks about two things, not only but also. FNM proposed as a second proposal not only that researchers limit data collection on individual patients, but also that researchers enroll more patients in clinical trials. So the second proposal, it seems slightly counter. Say, hey, on one side you actually collect less data, but on the other side you actually include more participants, thereby obtaining a more representative sample of the total population of the disease under study. Now, what's special about more representative? What's special about more representative? Why should you focus on more representative? Okay, more patients, more people. What else? You can actually draw an inference right from this. As I said, it's a comparative word. So what it means is that what FNM's proposal is, their recommendation is to select a sample that is more representative of the population. So currently, as per the current process, the sample that's selected for population under study is not as representative as will be the case if FNM's proposal is passed. You can see the inference. It's a much more if the current sample is probably 30% representative of the population under study, as per FMM, it could be 60%, 70% representative of population with the disease under study. Okay. Again, comparatives leads to inferences. Often researchers, more is a comparative over here. Okay. Often researchers restrict study participations to patients who have no ailments besides those being studied. So in simple words, summarizing this, those are ideal participants or ideal patients. A treatment judged successful under these conditions can then is also an important keyword, be evaluated under normal conditions. So this is essentially a two-step approach. Okay. So the second proposal here, the first one was collect less data. The second is enroll more people, and you get a much more representative sample of population under study with that particular disease. Currently, what happens? You have an ideal set of patients, and then you have a second step overall. Okay. So again, benefits of a larger trial is what we're talking about. That's the second proposal here. Okay. Broadening the range of trial participants, FNM suggests, again, look how careful the author is. He's giving FNM uh, credit. Broadening the range of trial participants, FNM suggests, would enable researchers to evaluate. Evaluate as what again? What did we talk about? What do we do when we evaluate something? We look at the pros and cons. Yes. The benefits and downsides. Positives and negatives. Yes. To evaluate a treatment's efficacy for diverse patients under various conditions and to evaluate its effectiveness for different patient subgroups. Again, don't go into the technical piece. It essentially means what you are really trying to say is, hey, how good a treatment is for patients under different conditions and for different subgroups. And then the author gives examples of that. For example, the value of a treatment for a progressive disease may vary according to the patient stage of disease. So this is an example of the conditions aspect of it. So we talked about various conditions. This is an example of the conditions part. Patients' ages may also affect our treatment's efficacy. This is most likely an example of subgroups. Ages is over here, is subgroups. Okay. Is the passage clear to everyone? Okay. So if you were to just summarize this, paragraph 1 talks about simpler trial. We say collect less data. Paragraph 2 is about a larger trial and the benefits of those. So essentially, the author does is he describes two proposals by FNM to improve medical research. Okay, is that clear? Two proposals by FNM to improve medical research. He describes those proposals. Okay. Is the pre-thinking clear? Before looking at answer choices, always pre-think. Is this pre-thinking clear? The goal of this passage is to describe two proposals by FNM to improve medical research. And again, you don't have to be super, um, what's the right way? Organized in your thoughts. You have to be logically correct in what you say. So this could be two sentences, one sentence, or uh, and so on and so forth. I'll share that slide on what is inference. Please, I can't go back 30 slides right now with 80 people in the session. Let's look at the answer choices, but I'm going to share the PDF with you and you can really look at that. Okay. Yeah. Let me just share how you guys polled. And when you ask such questions, it tells me what is it that I should have ready as notes. This is how you guys polled. Choice D is the correct answer. And you can really see 53% of the class got it right, but choice C was confusing for people. Choice E was somewhat confusing overall. I hit the wrong thing. Let me bring back my short answer poll. But you guys did really well in questions 3 and 4. I was really, really happy to see that. Choice A says identifying two practices in medical research that may affect the accuracy of clinical trials. We talk about the two practices, but when you think about the goal is not to identify two practices that may affect the accuracy of clinical trials. The goal is to present two proposals. Also, we don't really talk about the accuracy. We don't really say, hey, with this, trials would become more accurate overall. The first proposal is about cost reduction. The second proposal is expanding so that you get more data upfront. Okay. Let's talk about choice B. Choice B says describing aspects of medical research that tend to drive up cost. This is what I call as a partial scope. If the passage were just the first para, that this probably might have been an okay answer but even then I would have rejected this one because we only talk about one aspect. We don't really talk about all the aspects. If this choice were to describe one aspect of medical research that tends to drive up costs, then I would have agreed with this. Let's look at choice C. C was really tempting. How many of you really understood choice C? Choice C says evaluating something. What am I evaluating? An analysis of certain shortcomings of current medical research practices. So what it means is if you were to just look at this, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of the analysis. Does the author talk about pros and cons of an analysis? No. Does the author talk about pros and cons of an analysis? Not at all. What it means is if I were to do this, here's a parallel. If someone analyzes Google stock, then you really say, hey, how good is that analysis? Is it good? Is it bad? In what aspects is it good? In what aspect is it bad? You're not evaluating Google stock. You are evaluating the analysis of Google stock. So in this case, does the author evaluate any analysis? Does the author say F&M's research is proposal is good here and F&M's research is bad here? This is what this answer choice is saying. Can you really see what choice C is asking you to do? Evaluating what? An analysis of certain shortcomings. How many of you read it this way? Okay. One person did it this way. Yeah. F&M has not mentioned anything about his own views in the passage. Not a whole lot. Some, but not a whole lot. He's just presenting F&M's proposal. Okay. Really important to independently read answer choices. And you're going to find them so much more. You're going to find it so much more easy to reject that. Can you disregard option A because F&M isn't a practice but a proposal? Absolutely. Yes, you can do that. But the author agrees with it. No, I can't really say. Does the author agree we should have larger trials? Or we should collect less data? No. So can we say the author agrees with it? Okay. So choice C is wrong for these reasons. Yes, the author's made it. And then I like how just within an hour and a half, you guys are able to make that judgment. Okay. Choice D is correct. Half of you got it correct. Describing proposed changes to ways in which clinical trials are conducted. So it's describing the proposal and then what is this? These are proposed changes to which how trials are connected today. Choice E says explaining how medical researchers have traditionally conducted trials and how such trials are likely to change. Do we know that these trials are likely to change? Absolutely not. Okay, which is why choice E is wrong. So about 53% of you got this right. 47% did not. 47%? What's your takeaway from this? What are you going to do to not make this mistake? Why did you falter, and then how are you going to prevent that from happening again? Ask yourself and type it out. Please, please, please type it out. Because if you type it out, yes, it may not. But again, ask yourself and type it out. Read answer choices and then evaluate. Good. That's a good takeaway. What else are you going to do? Or if you're going to do the same thing, then copy and paste the same thing. But I want you to type it out. For you to evaluate an analysis has to be made, correct? Whatever B is saying, in some ways it's discussed in first para, but again, that main point should encompass the entire passage, not just the first para. Remember, the main point of the passage, not main point of the para. Okay. Takeaways, guys. What are you going to do to avoid these mistakes? Need more stuff. Do not hurry to answer. Okay. Think hard. Question 2. Question 2 says, let's look at how you guys polled in question 2. Here is how you polled. Okay. Choices C, D, and E were very popular. Choice A was the most popular. It's the correct answer too. Which of the following can be inferred about a study of category of patients referred to as um, often researchers restrict study participation uh, um, uh, to patients who have no ailments beside this. So what we have to really figure out is what can we infer about such studies where we only have ideal patients. What can we infer about these? Let's go back to the passage. Okay. A treatment just successful under these ideal conditions can then be evaluated to normal conditions. Okay. So one thing which is there is to really say, hey, that you can infer from this is that the research or the results of such study are limiting, or it requires that you do a second study after this, and so that you can evaluate under normal conditions, or this study is not done under normal conditions. Okay. This is your pre-thinking. Really, really important to pre-think. You do this, you go to the answer choices with this pre-thinking, you're going to have a really easy time rejecting those, the incorrect ones. Let's look at choice A, which is the correct one. Half of you got this. The findings may have limited applicability. Yes, with this, it's limited applicability. Otherwise, because you have to do a second study. Choice B says it may be prohibitively expensive in its attempt to create ideal conditions. We don't know any of that. There's no mention of costs here. Choice C says it would be the best way to sample the total population. It's just the opposite. Anyone who actually chooses choice C hasn't understood the context of this. Choice D talks about limited information collection without increasing the risk that important variables could be overlooked. This is paragraph 1. We're talking about the second proposal here. Okay, data collection is not even discussed. Its findings would be more accurate if it concerned treatments for a progressive disease than if it concerned treatment for a non-progressive. How would you make that judgment, accuracy of those findings? I mean, progressive versus non-progressive, applicability of ideal conditions to progressive versus non-progressive is not mentioned there. How did you draw that inference? It's not there at all. Okay. This is the inference you should have drawn. Yes, the author will 100% agree with option A. Yes. But again, you can really see it's clearly mentioned what can be inferred from this line and inferred about a study. Look, let's go back. What does the question say? What can be inferred about a study? Okay. Read the question and then let's read the passage over here. Here is the passage. Who has mentioned these lines? Who has mentioned these lines? The one that I've italicized. Is it the author or FNM? Who's written these lines? No. It's author. It's the author over here. This is what the author is saying. This is what happens. Who has mentioned this part? Italicize over here. Who has mentioned this part? It's the author again. First line says F and M assert this. Then the author says, currently, this is what happens. Okay. The author is saying, I'm telling you, believe me, this is what happens. Let me draw a parallel. And again, this is where if you observe parallels, you'd be able to see this. I'm going to go back. Not really. Not really. You do it day in and day out. Let's say second line over here. What's the purpose of the second line? And who's written this? Okay, the author has written this. And what's the purpose of it? By writing the second line, the author is providing context. He doesn't tell you why the C2 is proposed. He tells you the context of it. Yes, to give you the information on current scenario. Is it confusing to figure out that the current aspect is written by the author? No. You do it day in and day out. It's just that you are not as mentally agile when you read another piece of text. Okay. Is it necessary to make the differentiation every time? Absolutely. Why is it necessary to make the differentiation? Why? So that you know you can draw inferences and so that you can read with precision. Okay. What is it that you're going to what is it that you're going to do when a couple of years post your MBA? One of the big jobs of a manager is to make decisions. All right. If and to help others make decisions. Now, if someone writes, this is a report by someone. What's the difference between sentence bullet 1 and bullet 2? This, you're reading both these bullets. The second is the manager's decision. The first one is a proposal. Now, if someone's bringing number one to you, what you're really saying is they're merely telling you this is what the consultants proposed, and it's not their opinion. Versus if someone's actually saying we should fire 10% of our operation folks and instead invest in AI to automate their work, then this is the person who's giving you that proposal, their decision. If 2 years out of your MBA, if you want to give your opinion, then you should use number two. If you want to just merely communicate information so that someone else can make a decision, you should use number one. If you do a mistake in one versus two, your job would be out. If you are on the other side, you are the person who's making that decision. If you can't make the difference between one and two, then you'd end up making a bad decision. Do you see the value of this in a leader's and a manager's life? Because a lot of the information, the communication that happens, it happens this way. Even when done verbally, it has to be done this way. So yes, it's important to know this. This is what's important, not the technical aspects of things. And which is why the GMAT's a beautiful exam. All right, I have two questions here. The first one by Dami. She says, I worry breaking the passages down like this takes too much time. Good point, Dami. And you should worry about it because essentially, or rather, you should or you should not. I shouldn't say that. Let me take those words back. It is going to take too much time. Let me say this. In the beginning, if you're not used to doing this, but that is a sign of learning. Okay. What you should not worry about is the fact that you shouldn't lose trust in yourself and your ability to do this. Remember this: 3 years ago, you knew. If you think about your profession, there are lots of things 3 years back that you didn't know, which you know now. Now, the reason why you know them now is because you put in focused effort on building core skills. Anything that you've excelled at in the last 3 years, and if you look back, it would be a result of your focused effort. Very few people are naturally good at most things they do. Someone who's truly improved in an area, they have improved because of focused effort. Okay, so don't lose trust in your ability to improve in this space. And if you're not taking time there, and if you're still in this webinar, that's when you should worry, because if that's the case, if you're not taking time, if you're still in this webinar, if you're not learning, then you might as well study something else, because then you're wasting time. Does that help, Dami? Rajeshwari says, can a beginner who started with prep choose e-GMAT? Yes. A lot of people think, hey, I've got to study from somewhere and then come take a prep course. Or prep courses are way more comprehensive than the best books out there. For example, our CR course has probably 6 times as many examples and learning sentences than the Power Score book does. Okay. But again, my point really is, if you're not struggling, you're not learning. Don't lose trust. This is just a test. You've got to face bigger challenges in life, which is why you're doing this. And I understand it's very challenging. For most working professionals, it becomes challenging to study for the GMAT. Why? Because your friends are not doing this. Okay. But trust me, as someone who's had about 20 plus years of 20 more years of experience than you guys have had, the reason why I am where I am is because I made decisions which were different from those made by my peers. So yeah. How many decisions the GMAT test taker actually takes in such an RC text full of facts yet sugared and tricky language? Uh, think about driving for a kilometer. How many times do you think you avoid an accident? Driving for a kilometer in a road full of traffic. How many times do you think you could get into an accident and you avoid it? Depends on which car I am in. You're in a car with 4 wheels. And that doesn't have AI that's driving it. You are driving it without technology helping you. What do you mean never? How many, if you close your eyes and drive, how long do you think you'd be able to drive before you get into an accident? If you close your eyes and drive, now how long? It probably will happen within 100 meters. Okay. You do that, right? The same way, you've got to do it in a passage too. But trust yourself, the fact that you can do it naturally while driving, because you focus on learning that, is the same reason why you'd be able to do it in an RC passage if you put in conscious effort. Okay. Does that answer your question? All right. It can be inferred from the passage that the study limited to those mentioned in the lines blah 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 have no elements which have the following advantages over the kind of study proposed by FNM. First of all, to answer this question, you had to understand what this question was saying, which is something which is challenging for most people. But um, just looking at the answers, the way you guys pulled for this one, I must say, if memory serves me right, you guys did incredibly well. 75% of you got it right. Choice C is indeed the correct answer. I'm going to quickly go through choices A, D, and E. Okay. So what this choice is saying is the study in which we have this limited set of participants. What would be the benefit of it? One of the things is it probably is easier to conduct such a study. The second is it's easier to analyze the data for this. Okay, why? Because you're limiting the participation to only those people who just have this disease. All right. Let's go through the options here. Let's look at choices. D. It would help researchers identify subgroups of patients. Again, this is if people who chose this did not did not understand the question stem. Similarly, experimental treatment for an average patient. First of all, the passage doesn't mention anything about experimental treatments. Those of you thinking about experimental treatments, you guys are bringing your own knowledge in the passage. And if it were to talk about experimental treatments, it would be in the context of the study proposed by FNM, not in the ideal case. Would it cost less in the long term? We don't really know that. So not relevant in this case. Okay. So, but you guys did really well. 75% of the class got it right. Okay, this is also another question that 75% of the class got it right. Let's go over here and question 4, 76% of you, the same 52 got it right. One person probably did not put in their response here, and that person is probably there and still solving. But again, choice A and C are what I'm going to focus on. So this is a purpose question. The author is asking, why does the author really, what is the question is asking, why does the author say patients' ages may also affect our treatment's efficacy? Why does the author really say that? He mentions it to really talk about the benefits of enrolling a large number of participants in the study. Okay. So this is an example of one of the benefits overall that we insights would be able to get out of it. Choice A says identify the most critical variable differentiating subgroups of patients. Now, do we know this is the most critical variable that differentiates subgroups of patients? Is anything like this mentioned? Choice C says indicate why progressive diseases may require different treatments at different ages. Do we know why progressive diseases require different treatments from the passage? Do we know that technicality? Does the passage even mention that? Absolutely not. Okay, and also progressive diseases are about a different thing. They're not about a patient subgroup. They are about the conditions aspect of it. But again, even if we were talking about subgroups, we don't know why progressive diseases may require different treatments. We don't know the reason. Why means the reason. Okay, and this is the correct answer. Most of you got it. Let's look at choice question number 5. Question 5 says, according to the passage, which of the following describes a result of which result means an outcome of the way in which, or the effect of the way in which researchers generally conduct trials. Okay. So let's look at this. We're talking about two proposals. Each one of them have an outcome. Proposal one says, hey, we collect a lot more data. The outcome is costs are more, money is wasted. Proposal two says the trials are conducted only in ideal condition. The outcome is applicability to real life is limited. You need to conduct a second trial to really ensure the applicability or to evaluate it again. Okay. Pre-thinking, is that clear? Okay. Let's look at how you guys polled for this one. The correct answer in this, and this is a difficult question, is choice A. Only 24% of you got it right. A lot of people chose choice C. I'm going to look at why that's wrong. A lot of people chose choice B as well. Let's look at all three answer choices. Okay. If there's some, let's look at choice C. They avoid the risk of overlooking variables that might affect their findings, even though doing so raises their research costs. Let's look at this over here in terms of the passage. What does avoiding a road mean? When you avoid a road, do you go on a road? When you avoid a road, do you travel on it? No. When you avoid an accident, do you get in an accident? When you avoid a person, do you meet a person? The answer to all of this is no. Okay. Although limiting information collection could increase the risk that researchers will overlook facts relevant to the study, FNM contend that such risk never entirely eliminable from research. If that risk is never entirely eliminable from research, can you avoid that risk? No. Yes, but is there anything that says by collecting so much data, you can avoid this risk? We don't know if the author is trusting it, but is there anything in the passage that says that you avoid this risk? This is an evidence of what FNM believe. You're absolutely right. But is there anything in the passage that says that we avoid that risk? Yes or no? Yes or no? Is there anything in the passage that says we avoid that risk by collecting so much data? If so, if you're saying yes, where is it? The passage is right in front of you. Increase the risk. Does it mean it's avoiding that risk? Closing your eyes while driving could increase the risk of you getting an accident. Does it mean keeping your eyes open would avoid you getting into an accident? Lessening something doesn't mean that you will not do it. Avoid means you won't do it. You understand the difference? Okay. And that's where understanding words, visualizing the answer choices independently is really important. This, okay. Everyone okay with why? Yeah, this was the last question. Yes. Everyone good with why this is incorrect? Okay. They sometimes compromise the accuracy of their findings by collecting and analyzing more information. Again, nowhere we don't discuss accuracy anywhere. Choice A is the correct answer. They expend resources on storage of information, which is likely to be irrelevant to the study that is conducted. Let's go to our passage here once again. And it's very, very clear. Currently, researchers collect far more background information than is strictly required. It's more than strictly required, which means it's likely to be irrelevant. Okay. And this is a statement by the author. Yes. Word is the same as mitigating something. Sometimes, yes. Okay. Oh, that's also written over there. Let me, thereby increasing costs of, what does the passage say? Thereby increasing costs of, thereby escalating the cost of data collection, storage, and analysis. All three. Can you see? Okay, this question, was it likely to be relevant? If you do something more than is strictly required, then the current way of doing things is you expend resources on something which is likely to be irrelevant. Yes, that's another way of saying the same thing. Okay. No one chose choices D&E, so I'm not going to worry about it. All right. So, irrelevant is not mentioned, and which is the problem with people not reading the passage first to that degree and looking for the same word. Okay. If something is more than required, let me just go back and get my notes here. That those incremental questions that he solved, they're irrelevant in the context of scoring higher than 700, right? The done are strictly required to score 700. Correct? Okay. The moment I say that more than required, I am saying that's irrelevant. Okay, what did we learn from today? What are the big takeaways that you guys have? What were your big takeaways? What are the two behaviors that you're going to encourage and two that you're going to discourage from this point on? Patience, manager's point of view instead of engineer's point of view. Read like a leader, not an engineer. Take notes, good. Spend time pre-analyzing the passage, really, really good. Very, very good. Okay. So if you want to succeed on RC, you've got to do things. One is you've got to get a much better understanding of the passage, and which means you've got to have the ability to read slowly so that you get to that level of understanding. And the second thing is you've got to have data to power your success. That's really, really important. You've got to figure out where you're making mistakes, why you're making mistakes, and you need a system that collects that information and gives you that feedback. Now, a lot of people think, hey, I've got to read slowly in a time test. Why the hell is that? Why should I read slowly? Because when you read slowly, you comprehend. When you comprehend, you're not confused. Now, right off the bat, when you guys do this, you guys are going to take a lot longer than reading a passage in about 2 minutes. You're going to take about 4 minutes, 5 minutes, even 7 minutes, and that's absolutely okay. But as you read 4, 5, 6, 10 passages, what you're going to find is that you'll get to a time where you'll read most passages in about 3 minutes. And as you get to reading most passages in 3 minutes, you're going to answer questions in about a minute each, which means you're going to take about 7 minutes per passage, and you're still going to answer questions with really high accuracy. And high accuracy in hard is what we're talking about with regards to somewhere where you're looking about 70 to 75% accuracy in hard questions, which 75% accuracy in hard questions, 90% accuracy in medium and easy questions is about a 90th percentile. As you then build your error log, that 70-75% will increase to 80-85, which is when you start to get to 97-98 percentile overall. On the other hand, if you actually skim through the passage, you're going to read the passage in about 2 minutes, but then you're going to end up doing a lot of back and forth. Your accuracy in hard questions is going to be about 40%, and medium questions is going to be about 70%. That is a 50th percentile ability person. You don't want to be that person. Okay, really, really important for you. Bottom line is, if you comprehend the passage, if you invest time, you're not going to need more than a minute to solve questions. Not a great question. It says, even when you read slowly, sometimes you zone out while reading. First of all, as I said, you go into the passage, be mentally ready that you are there to read the passage. Okay, really important. So that way you won't zone out. If you're tired, then please take a break, sleep for 10 minutes, meditate, really, really important, and then go back to the passage. Okay. Now, if it so happens that you still go out, that you still zone out, then of course reread. The other piece which is there is in tests, if that happens, first of all, don't let it happen in the test. If unless and until this is the same way as saying if I'm driving with my eyes closed. And then again, forgive me for repeating that example, but that's kind of what it is. If you're not in a habit of zoning out, then it's not going to happen in the test always. It's not going to happen in the test as well, unless and until you've not slept the night before, which in that case you shouldn't be taking the test in the first place. Again, you shouldn't be driving if you're sleepy. Okay. So remember, you win or lose on the exam during your prep phase. The exam is merely a representation of what your prep is. And this recommendation that came in, that taking notes is helpful, is actually an incredibly helpful recommendation. So that definitely ensures that you don't zone out. Okay. And trust me, when we are saying this, we go back to GMAT Club, look at our reviews. 3 out of 5 700 plus scores reported since 2021 have been reported by e-GMAT. And if you go look at any of the sessions, we have upwards of 200 sessions on YouTube. In every session, in every subject, we say, do not go for speed, go slow. The more you go slow, the more you're going to succeed. Okay. And again, 40% is all of these combined, 60% is just us. And when you think about the number of customers, we have 25% of the customers are here, and then 75% of the customers are here. Okay. A lot of people talk about 5-star reviews. We are at more than 2,000 5-star reviews. Everyone else combined doesn't have as many 5-star reviews as we do. Okay. There are some examples here, and these are normal people. I'm not going to give you examples of people who get to a 780, 790 or so, because those guys are naturally good. They're not as relevant to you. People who are relevant to you are such people where people have 100, 150, 200 points improvements, going from a V15, V20 to a V38, V40. A lot of people ask, who gives you more happiness? Someone who goes from a 710 to a 780, or someone who goes from a 550 to a 720? It's the latter. Why? Because someone who's at a 550, if that person who's gone to a 720, we've given that person hope. He or she wouldn't have gone to a top school unless and until we had helped them. That 710 person probably would have gotten a 750 even without us. Now with us, that person got a 780. The difference that we made was, maybe that guy got $50,000 more scholarship than he or she otherwise did. But again, they would have done pretty well otherwise too. But when it comes to the impact that we make, there are people who go from a V19 to a V40. That's huge for us. Can you afford to get one question wrong on an RC in the focus edition and get 90th percentile? Simple answer, yes, you can. But again, don't aim for it. But yes, data suggests that you can. Okay. Um, but again, look at what these people are saying. Read to understand, analyze each part of the information, understand the purpose of it, and use it using the SC hat. There's another guy who really says, what you have to understand is you have enough time. Do not stress about timing. Take 3+ minutes. This is a guy who struggled to improve because he prepared for speed and he stuck at a 680 for about a year and a half. The moment he focused on learning, he improved to a 740, got a scholarship, got an admit to Columbia. Okay. You can see his ESR. Here's a person who actually did really well in the IDES exam, which is the equivalent of IAS in India. It's a really competitive exam. Yet when he gave the GMAT, he got a V27 because he rushed through the stuff to reading through the passages. And he says, in case of RC, I was forced to read uh, the passage multiple number of times, and the reason I did not understand, and because he didn't understand the passage, and once he he started using reading strategies. Uh, he said the need to read passages repeatedly went down significantly. You can actually watch his debrief on our YouTube channel. If you search his name, Dr. Rohit Singh Malan, he has a really famous YouTube channel himself where he talks about business and other aspects of Indian politics, and you can really see him. This guy's a really um, I mean, he speaks really well. Yet this person, because he's tried to rush through things, faltered on RC. This actually right now is about 340 such instances on YouTube. Okay. So why do you make mistakes? Someone talked about error log. So in terms of e-GMAT's error log, it's what we call as a causal error log. And you've got to figure out where you fill information. Did you make a mistake because you did not comprehend a certain keyword? You did not visualize information in the passage? And again, if you did not do one of those things, you've got to figure out why did you not do things. Did you rush through things? Or did you not leverage keywords? Did you not summarize? The other option is, did you not read the answer choice in isolation before making a decision as to whether the answer choice is correct or not? Again, if you did that, change that behavior. The last piece, which is there, is some people don't understand the questions. And this is what you feed in your error log. These are the major headers over there. And then these are subheaders inside those major headers. If you didn't read the passage, you figure out why you didn't read the passage. The corrective action is automatic. You didn't read the answer choice in isolation, figure out why you didn't do it, what aspect of answer choice did you not understand, then your corrective action is right then and there. Same thing with the question stem. Okay. Now, Soha, hopefully that answers your question. Manvinder, do you have to go through a GMAT SC course to build focus edition concepts? No, you've got to go through the master comprehension course where you learn the building blocks of sentences. And then the first module in the SC course, that's about 1 day worth of work. And then you can move on to CR if you are aiming for the focus edition, which I'm sure many of you are. But going through the master comprehension is really important because you learn the building blocks of the sentence. You learn how big sentences are constructed. You'd understand the importance of keywords over there, and you'd know where to pause. Again, we teach you these things. No book will teach you this because A, they don't think it's important. B, publishers won't pay for people taking the space. And C, without an audio visual and a quizzing format, especially the kind of that we built, you can't really do this. Okay. How many of you have gone through a quant course or our data insights course and use those drag and drop interactions and other things? Okay. It's fun, right? It uses a part of your brain which you normally don't use if you're not if you're not actively reading, it ensures that you stay active. And there's a reason why we invest in that tech. Then you've got to go through reading strategies. Whatever we talked about, we have these in 5 files. Really make sure you go through these. Okay. Then you go through all the concept level files where you understand how you get to the main point, what are the methods. You actually practice main point on 10 passages over here. Then you do repeat the same thing with with inference, then detail, then structure questions. But again, the key thing is go deep rather than broad. Okay. If you go deep, you're going to find life is going to be a lot easier than it would otherwise be. So focus on getting immersed, understanding how to visualize information. You do that, you use reading strategies as key school tool. And wherever you falter, make sure you utilize data which is there in Scholaranium to figure out why you're faltering, where you're faltering, and then do a closed loop correction in this case. Okay. All right. And if you need help, write to me at roger.e-gmail.com and connect with me on LinkedIn. Guess that even if you go deep on very long passages, you forget and require to come back to the passage. Yes, I'm not saying you won't have to come back to the passage. But if you go deep, you're going to find that for 90% of the questions, you can get to the answer without coming back to the passage. Sometimes for some details, you would have to. Uttar says, I'm planning for GMAT focus, mostly on ISB and SPJN and other Indian institutes. I'm a fresher and I'm also preparing for CAT. Will it help in GMAT preparation? I would say whatever you do with e-GMAT is going to help you in your CAT preparation on the verbal side of things. The other way usually doesn't help a whole lot. And the quant side, CAT prep helps. On the verbal side, it doesn't. Okay, let me share the session PDF. Here is a session PDF. Below that, you have some interviews, and then you have some links you have a link to my LinkedIn channel, and you have the link to Payal's LinkedIn channel as well. So if you connect with Payal and me and Payal and I, then you're going to find a lot of information that you need for MBA is there. Where do you read articles and passages? The Economist. If there's one place where I recommend you read it's The Economist. But again, if you're an e-GMATer, you have access to upwards of 120 passages. You won't need any other articles. Okay. All right. With that, share the PDF of last week's webinar. Thank you very much. Let me add that right next to this. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, you should have told me earlier. Thank you for staying back, though. I've uploaded the PDF. It should be there fairly soon. It's there now. Should be able to download that. So it's right below the RC webinar. Okay. All right, guys. With that, I want to thank everyone for joining me today. It's wonderful to have you guys, and good luck and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.